Welcome to Everything with Everett. This is a talk show podcast hosted by Everett McConaughey. The purpose of this production is to share thoughts, voices, and information to further a discussion on who we are as individuals, communities, and a global society. Everything with Everett is open to all topics of discussion: faith, science, history, finances, social issues, and, well, everything. Be sure to follow, like, and subscribe. Visit everettpodcast.com for all the details.
Hello, everybody. It's me. This is definitely not the episode I was promising and hoping to deliver at this, at the next posting. Obviously, I was going to do part 2 of the airport security, and, well, something else happened, and the last month has been a complete blur. So on September 2nd, I got a phone call that I was not ready for, not anticipating, just, oh my God. My sister Selena called, and sadly we don't talk a lot on the phone, so the fact that she's calling means that something big was going on. And most likely involved my mom. My sister Selena lives in Boise. My mom lived in Meridian. And I'm sure you can sense where this is going based on my word choice there. But she was calling to let me know that a welfare check had just taken place at my mom's house, and she was found deceased in her living room. So that began derailing September. And then I contacted my sister, let her know. She obviously had, the reaction you would expect of somebody who was equally close to their mom. And yeah, we began the journey of wrapping up my mom's estate and affairs and planning a funeral for her. So I want to do an episode about her because she was undoubtedly my number one fan. Basically, all the Meridian Idaho downloads are her. I know it. And I'm sad to say that I don't think I'm going to have any more Meridian downloads, because she was Meridian. She was, that location. My mother-in-law, also a good loyal listener. She's, downloading from Nampa and Caldwell, so not going to muddy that. I know I can tell, roughly where people are, but just pulling up the stats on here for the last 5 episodes, the 4th highest download city is Meridian, with 7 downloads representing 6% of the listeners for the last 5 episodes. And that's my mom. She, when I opened up her phone, on her iPhone, the Apple Podcast app, she only had 5 podcasts that she was subscribed to. Most of them were LDS and faith-based productions, but she also subscribed to mine. And the cool part was my episode about what was it? The obedience versus. I'm drawing a blank. My brain has been mush since all this went down. I feel like it was thrown into a blender. work is the only thing that I really know how to do. Like, but my personal life has gone to shit. My thinking is just totally just, personal time management outside of work is just crap. So I am thankful for the routine and stability of work where, I can just show up and for 8 hours a day, I know what I'm doing and I know what I need to do. And then the rest of the day is just kind of, I'm here. Thankfully I have my husband to help, break up the monotony of all that. And help, keep me moving forward because we've got big things going on in our personal life. We're moving again. And like, it's never an ideal time for these things to blow up. But, so when I opened up my mom's podcast app, Apple Podcasts, the last episode she had on her player, or she had paused, was my podcast, my episode from March about the obedience versus respect episode. And I just think that's so cool. That's who she was. She was my number one fan. Jeremy, my husband, is also a number one fan on a different, side of my heart. I have a lot of number one fans, truthfully. Like, my sisters support me also, like, but so everyone's like, there's multiple facets of number one, depending on what relationship you are to me. But my mom was definitely number one in a lot of ways. So massive, thanks to her over the years for supporting me to help make this podcast, listen to and bring up those stats and just, she was an excellent, excellent lady. And I want to share on this podcast, I feel like I'm in a stronger space where I can say some things about her that, need to be shared and I want to be shared and will, do her justice. I also know I don't want to babble in your ear. I don't want to cry in your ear. It could happen, but she really prepared me for, the concept of death and passing on and getting older. Again, we didn't expect her to go so soon. Her mom lived to 83 and dad lived to 90. So I was expecting at least, 20 some odd years out of her. So this very much was unexpected. But has definitely lit a fire and inspired me and Jeremy to, and I hate saying this because it feels to me like I'm blaming mom or something. Like, I'm not. She did everything she could to live a healthy life. She, cut out her, fondness for a little Hershey's nugget candy bar out of the candy dish. She put the candy dish away, because our family has a history of like diabetes and stuff. And, she knew how to be a healthy person. She knew, when signs were wrong. She was medically trained professionally. And I believe she did everything she knew she should do and could do, which makes this even harder because it's just something happened and she didn't, I don't think she was aware she was about to die. And I don't think she had any awareness that that's what was coming. So without further, whatever, I always say further ado. I feel like I'm rambling, but I wanted to read her obituary that we wrote up. My sister Neva wrote up and we posted that online. And then I wanted to share the thoughts that I wrote and spoke at her funeral at her LDS church. And I spoke at her parents, both of her parents' funerals in the LDS church. I've been to so many funerals. I think like 8 funerals in the last like 10, 15 years. So this was not by any stretch like the first funeral I've been to. I'm familiar with death and mourning, but this was equally the hardest that I've gone through, but also I feel like I've been leaning on Mom's advice through past funerals that she helped me through. And I'm finding a lot of strength in her memory as well. So while it's much harder than anything I've been through, I'm also feeling stronger getting through it, if that makes sense. So this is the obituary for JoAnn Grensing, published to legacy.com by Accent Funeral Home in Meridian, Idaho, on my birthday, September 8th, 2025. They wanted to have her funeral on my birthday, and my sisters were like, don't do that. And I'm glad we didn't do that. So we had her funeral the day after my birthday. Mom and I were only 27 years apart in age. So she was a prime 27-year-old lady, gorgeous lady, when I was born. All right, so here is her obituary as written by my sister. JoAnn, Jo, to family, Grensing, age 64 of Meridian, Idaho, returned home to her Heavenly Father September 2nd, 2025. She was born January 14th, 1961 in San Gabriel, California, as the fourth daughter of Neva and Rollo Barrett. Her early years were spent in California and St. George, Utah, before the family eventually settled in Meridian, Idaho. JoAnn's kindness and caregiving nature were evident from an early age as personalities began to emerge among the children. A graduate of Meridian High School in 1979, JoAnn excelled academically and sang joyfully in church and in the school choir. After graduation, she attended beauty school, worked locally, and soon began an adventurous chapter working in motels in neighboring states. She later settled back in Idaho, where she became the proud mother of son Everett and daughter Neva. Motherhood was her greatest joy, and she faced life's challenges with resilience, faith, and grace. In 1994, JoAnn met the love of her life, Larry Grensing, at an autumn church dance. Their connection was immediate, and they were married that same December. Together they blended their families with love, and JoAnn embraced her stepdaughter, Selena, as her own. JoAnn's affection for family and her ability to nurture those around her defined her life. Her career reflected her natural gift for caretaking. She worked as a CNA and later the director of admissions at Capitol Care Center in Boise. Always offering compassion and comfort to others, she also cared tenderly for her father and later her husband during their final years. After Larry's retirement, the couple moved to Garden Valley, where they cherished time in the mountains and enjoyed nature and building a life in their tight-knit community. They helped establish the Pay It Forward thrift store, a nonprofit that reflected their giving spirits. Though they later returned to Meridian for Larry's medical care, JoAnn continued to build lasting friendships with neighbors and her church community. After Larry's passing in 2021, JoAnn carried on with courage, drawing strength from her family, her faith, and many relationships she cherished. She will always be remembered as a devoted wife, loving mother, beloved sister, and dear friend to many. Her radiant presence, kindness, and warmth touched all who knew her. JoAnn is survived by her children, Everett and husband Jeremy, Neva, Selena and husband McHugh, granddaughter Haley, siblings Peggy, Mary, and Rollo, her extended family who will miss her dearly. She was preceded in death by her husband Larry and parents, as well as sister Tana. So that is her official obituary. Let me pull up the note that I wrote. Have that on my phone here, but I wasn't prepared. I mean, this is pretty normal for me, right? You're all used to this. All right, so here is what I wrote and read at her funeral. God, why? When you use your phone, it like pops up all these ads. Like, you know, I'm sounding like my mom now. Her and I, we used to have very in-depth conversations about, we called them solving life's problems or the world's problems. We talked about politics. We talked about all kinds of stuff. We were very aligned in recent years, and I will deeply miss those conversations. We easily talked for 2 hours every month when we would connect. She was busy, like we said in the obituary, she was involved with her church, friends, stuff. So it wasn't like she was just sitting around waiting for someone to call her or whatnot. So she was very active. And when she had time, she'd always be like, hey, haven't heard from you for a bit. I'd like to talk to you. And then I would always make sure that I called her back within 48 hours or something when she reached out. And then we always talked for about 2 hours or slightly more. And it was either when I was at home, she was at home, or if I was driving, to or from work, because right now I'm doing a 2-hour each way commute to work, which is crazy. But I've done that almost a year now, and we're moving in November, thankfully. So my commute will be cut in less than half, down to 1/3 the length that I've been driving. So that will be nice, living closer to Philadelphia. So here's what I wrote and spoke at her funeral. Remembering JoAnn Grensing, 1961 to 2025. I've spoken at many funerals and shared stories of several inspirational individuals. One of the most cherished voices in my 37 years of life has been that of my own mother. She taught me to be kind, respectful of another's being, and to live a life that was factually true. From a young age, she taught us about intent and optics. We weren't allowed to aim a toy gun at a living creature because even pretend actions that looked like violence could be violence someday. Rule number 1 was, your freedom ends where my nose begins. Imagine how that wisdom not only shaped my adolescent physical behavior, but also my adult voting habits. When I was a kid, I quoted a Disney movie villain and asked my mom, do you think I'm odd? She loved telling that story of how I dropped my voice so low that she had to pull out the movie and see what I was imitating. Making someone genuinely laugh is the purest thing you can give to another soul during your time together. Mom loved how much her kids made her laugh and enjoy life. When we were young, Mom worked at Capitol Care Center, where she helped veterans like a man named Emmett Payne fight for his rights to quality health care and military service awards forgotten by bureaucracy. She volunteered to drive the activities bus and take a wheelchair-bound gentleman named Sam High to a church next door so that he could worship in his chosen house of faith. Mom advocated for the person to be seen, for their individual qualities to be recognized and hopefully appreciated by those in community. Looking back at home movies that took place during her divorce and custody battle with our father, and subsequently abusive husband, she never allowed someone to dampen her voice or desire to be a magical beacon of hope for a bright future or a moment with us, ages 2 and 4. I remember Mom seeking refuge in our bedroom one night. I'll go more into that in a minute. This world preys on love and kindness. When she met Larry Grensing in 1994, she found someone to sing life with. She loved Larry for being as kind and genuine as she was. She found safe harbor in his arms and through every moment they shared. We were blessed with their example of true love. Mom encouraged us to give second chances to people who didn't seem to deserve it. She encouraged us to own our decisions about relationships and always put righteous values first. My mom was the first person I ever completely trusted. When I was 6, I remember telling my father that the reason I loved my mom the most was because she doesn't lie to me. Once I turned 18, I I started talking about politics and world events. Our discussions got passionate, but we always took time to listen to each other, mindful to not overspeak or step on the other's moment. We clashed in some early conversations, but in time we found common ground. I know I've brought her voice to other conversations, and she has shared my voice in other circles because we've been aligned for years. Mom and I would easily talk for 2 hours each phone call. We called them our solving the world's problems conversations. Oh, what a world we'd share if everyone could love like JoAnn. Since we moved to Pennsylvania in 2023, our phone calls were roughly a monthly occurrence. Often because of our schedules and time differences, she'd get ready for bed and we'd talk during my 2-hour commute to or from work. She was excited my drive will be shorter after our upcoming move to the Philadelphia suburbs. Mom had a poker face that I'll honestly spend my life trying to master. She'd never confirm what you heard until she knew that you knew over 70% of the same story that she had. If you confided in her, trust that she took your secrets with her from this world. She shared that this maturity started during her time at Meridian High when someone had, quote, not so kind words about a relative. Mom said, it was none of my business, so I kept it to myself. Mom would say, I will always love you when we went to bed. Once she shared that she challenged herself to mean what she said or stop saying it if there was ever something she couldn't love us over. When it comes to life, we all have choices that make it our own. Mom taught that this is called free agency in her faith. If you ever feel like asking, is that normal? Just remember Mom's sage advice. Normal is just a setting on a washing machine. Music is a powerful and unifying force. If you want to channel my mom's legacy and energy, listen to the Carpenters and focus on the lyrics that echo what I have shared with you today. Some lyrics to remember her by. Sing a song. Make it simple to last your whole life long. Don't worry that it's not good enough for anyone else to hear. Just sing. Sing a song. And lastly, rainbows have nothing to hide. My mom's favorite music artists were arguably beacons of the LGBTQ community. She loved George Michael. She loved Elton John, Prince, Michael Jackson. She was a fan of those that society was like, ooh, they're weird, or ooh, they're not, heterosexual or heteronormative. They don't fit in the little box of, white society. And Mom embraced, people for who they were, and she loved flair. She loved color. Like, nobody likes a black and white person. People want something, shiny and pretty to look at. Something unique. Rainbows are better than a black and white photograph. Just going to say that. So here's where I'm going to kind of deviate from just here's my mom, these are the things that she would want shared. But I want to go into some things that maybe if she was alive, she'd, be like, oh, don't share that. But it's nothing super personal. It's nothing that I have to worry about, people stealing her identity on. I'm not going to, get too into the weeds. But I want you to know why I listen to women and value women so much, because it was all connected to this amazing person, my mom. Going back to her rule number 1, your freedom ends where my nose begins. That is sound advice and guidance for a child. Obviously, you can't hit somebody. You shouldn't hit someone. You shouldn't touch someone out of anger or violence. If you're frustrated at what someone does, use your words. Say something. Say, that hurt me or whatever. You don't get to go hit them. You don't get to abuse them. You don't get to harm them like her husband, number 3, did. That man grabbed her hair and drug her around the house. I heard from several friends that were friends with her at the time when all that was going down, and they described what she had told them as that he drug her from room to room by her hair. And she was known to have long, beautiful, flowing hair early on in life. And he's the one she was seeking refuge from in our room. I remember she was crying one night. I think I was like 3 or 4. And like, this is going to sound weird. To anybody who is listening that was at our houses growing up, the house on Patty Court where she lived. Sorry, I'm standing my desk up because I'm tired of sitting. The house that they had 4 houses ago had the exact same layout as the house that she lived in with that husband, that abusive husband. I'm not going to say his name because who knows if he's listening. He's tried to connect with me since her passing, and he's like, "Oh, I love you guys. Always loved you guys." No, you abused my mother, the most cherished human being in my life. Seriously, go jump off a cliff, die of a heart attack. I don't care. Like, I have so much anger and frustration for the men that not only gave 0 Fs about me, but also like tried to harm my mother and dull her light. So he, beat her and whatnot, and the house that took place in, I guess was owned by my aunt, her sister, Tana, who passed, in 2013, I think, or 2011, somewhere in there, many years ago. And the house was laid out the same way as the house she later had. And the room that was my room was the same room that was our room in that house. And I remember, like, the outlet was in the same spot, and I described it to her. I was like, I remember you sitting in that room next to an outlet right here on the floor. You were crying, and we were, falling asleep to go to bed. And she told me that was the one safe refuge in that house, was wherever we were, because he wouldn't go into that room. But if she went into the bathroom and locked the door, he would pick the locks and come in after her and, continue beating her. But wherever the kids were, that's where the safe refuge was. And I remember personally, one night it was raining and he was working on, it was one of those houses that had been kind of like converted. The garage had been made into like a big master bedroom, and then a new garage was built in front of the original garage. So it was kind of an extended thing, which that was the only real difference between the 2 houses. And I remember he was doing something in the bathroom, like plumbing wise, and it was cold and rainy, and she came in and, she was a sweet, wife, classic that you think of. Hey, sweetie, can I have my slippers? Because she wanted to take her wet shoes off and socks and get cozy and whatnot. And he was just like super frustrated that he was having to put down the torch or stop what he was. I don't know what the hell he was doing or why he was so agitated, but he was mad that he had to, help his wife with something. And he threw the slippers at her. I didn't actually see him, but the next thing I remember was she asked, he was mad, and then slippers came flying out the bedroom door at her. And I happened to be in between her and the door, and one of the slippers hit me. They weren't, heavy or hard or anything, so I didn't get hurt. But he didn't care. He didn't care where we were. He didn't care about her. He was a complete piece of shit. So many straight men are complete pieces of utter trash. This world has a problem with toxic masculinity and toxic men. Mom told me, for years that she knew there was one or two options. Either I was going to grow up to be just like her two worst husbands and be a complete piece of trash, human male piece of existence, or I was going to be, embracing of her and be a kind, caring individual. And I'm so thankful that it's the latter of the two, because nobody, frankly, wants to be married to a piece of shit. Both those men have had multiple marriages. One of them is currently married. I don't even know how. Like, just from what I've seen, they're not happily married. They have multiple marriages. Like, they're toxic red flags. And very fittingly, both of them have a Chinese zodiac of being a snake. Wow. Amazing. Couldn't have said it better myself. It's cold-blooded. Anyway. So she was a victim of domestic violence. He hurt her so bad that she swore that she was in choir and whatnot. He took away her joy of singing. She felt like she could never sing like she used to before that relationship because of the damage that was done to her neck and throat. The strain of being drug around the house as a victim of domestic violence. And I know it was, so long, like this was back in the early 90s, like 1990, 91-ish area, up to like 94. So, long time ago, a lot of things likely healed, but she ultimately died of a suspected upper GI bleed. Something broke and massively hemorrhaged, and she bled to death. Who knows what actually caused it, but I'm pretty sure being drugged by the neck didn't help early in life. Having to have 2 surgeries because one failed and having to redo the surgery to fuse her neck so that she didn't have neck pain. I'm sure that was a real joy. Thanks, you piece of crap former husband. It just aggravates me that women are not respected more. Instead of fighting for babies to be born, we're anti-abortion. The babies need to be born. That's a precious life. Value the goddamn mother. Why are we keeping, women on life support so that they can be a living incubator? Let's save the mom's life, even if that means aborting a fetus.
We'll be right back.
Greetings, everybody. It's me. I am interrupting the podcast episode that you selected with a quick message. My mom passed away, possibly on August 30th, but she was officially found and declared deceased on September 2nd. She was very young. She's only 64 years old. And right now we are going through the process of settling her estate, having to wait for the Idaho courts to sign off on who can legally represent the estate, and then begin the process of selling her house, selling the furniture items that don't hold deep sentimental value within the family. But in the meantime, my sister Selena is graciously taking on the responsibility of maintaining the payments of the mortgage and utilities and everything that keeps stuff from being foreclosed on, repossessed, and what have you. So, needless to say, we could use a little bit of financial assistance on this front, just to help weather us, possibly into November. And hopefully, we can get the house sold. So we do have a GoFundMe account set up. If you are able to either share the information with your friends, if you're able to, donate $5, we would totally appreciate that. The link to the GoFundMe will be in this episode. We will take it down once those funds are no longer needed. So that's why I'm doing this standalone information. Again, thank you for all your time and support. Your listening is massively appreciated. And if you're able to at all assist on getting the word out or contributing to this situation, please accept my sincere thanks on behalf of myself and my sisters. And most importantly, my number one listener, JoAnn Grensing. Thank you. I'm passionate about women's rights, women's independence, because of my mom, JoAnn. And I feel like there's so much crap going on right now. We're in an era where women are being placed on the chopping block, and I wouldn't be shocked if in the next 10 years, if we keep on this track, we're going to go back to, my mom's early childhood when women couldn't even have a credit card in their own name. We're going to make women subservient to men again. And then what's next? Roll back 50 more years, take away their right to vote? Hell no, not on my watch. I'll never stand for that crap. And neither would my mom. She might have been LDS, and they're, not the most progressive or welcoming people, but she was unique. She didn't, have the classic crap that you may be aware of in that faith. She wasn't like a lot of my family members that are of that faith, that have some very questionable beliefs and utterances that come out of their mouth. She didn't talk like that. She didn't believe like that. She was there for the community. She was there for the good stuff. She was there to make a positive difference in the world. Not to be a ammo-loving, prepping racist. So that was the abusive husband. That was her story of domestic violence. Then you have my father, who, we were born premature. My sister and I were. My mom was also premature. And it's ironic that they say, oh, prematurity is not, we don't have any proof that it's genetic. It's just a random thing that happens. Guess what, folks? My grandma was premature. My mom, her daughter, was premature. Both my sister and myself were premature. So there's 4 generations right there. Well, 3 generations. But 4 people directly descended from each other that are all premature. Granted, my grandma had, 2 children that weren't premature. So not everybody that she gave birth to was premature. But the fact that you have a grandparent, a parent, and then a grandchild as premature, all connected, I think there's a genetic component to it. Just going to throw that out there. I'm no scientist, but I'm educated enough to see some relations there. So we were definitely like high risk births and whatnot. My father was just not prepared to be a father. The man's still alive. I have no true ill will towards him. I disagree why he fought for custody. I think that he should have stepped back and let my mom be the primary parent, because I feel like we would have had a better life growing up with her. I feel like a lot of things would have been better. And I always told him I wanted to live with her. I used to live with her for till I was 5. And then one day we went to go visit him, and he never brought us back. And then he joined up with a really weird lawyer in Boise who apparently he's still friends with. It's an unnatural friendship. That's all I'm going to say. The dude is creepy as hell. They're creepy together. But they've been friends their whole lives. I've always known this dude. And whatever they do in the back office when, behind a closed door, who the hell knows? But, so my mom, was kind of the primary parent and got us through all of the early development medical appointments. And once we were stabilized and I was off the nebulizer and we were kind of, out of the initial first 4 years of development and essentially ready to just become houseplants, that's when my father was like, oh, I want to be the primary parent. And he fought for custody and whatnot. And teamed up with the abusive husband that helped put the cherry on top. And we found a letter from that abusive husband. Oh, I'm sorry, JoAnn. I didn't know that your kids would be taken away from you. What the hell did you think you were in cahoots with the husband before you over? What do you think the court case was about? Just giving him a gold star? No, it was about a legal proceeding to take away the children from my mother. To make it so that she only saw us every 2 weeks in the summertime and every weekend during the month except the second and fifth weekend. That was the custody arrangement. She also had to maintain a house with 2 separate bedrooms and pay my father $300 in child support. And he was like, oh, it's a measly amount. That's so tiny. But that man never worked a regular job. He didn't clock in for shit. He worked from home. God knows what he actually did or is certified to do. He's so boastful about stuff, but then supposedly has these great, educational achievements that oddly enough, he's not uber proud about those and never had those framed and posted, but boy, he'll boast about everything else. He never submitted billing. He never had regular payments. 3 times I pulled foreclosure notices off of our front door coming home from school. I was also the one that had to take the the payment check to the Nampa City Water Department on a Friday afternoon after school as a young face, hey, it's 5:00 on a Friday, but please turn our water back on, because he was so delinquent on paying the bills. One time he was out of town and the power got shut off. And our church secretary was coming over to babysit us so that we could go to school and whatnot, and she would feed us and everything. And the church paid to have the power reconnected. Nobody in Nampa knew where the Intermountain Gas building was on the Nampa Caldwell Boulevard, but I did, because I had to drive out there with the check to get the gas turned on so we'd have hot water and heat in the wintertime. That's who won custody of 2 children. My mom never had delinquent bills. My mom never had utilities shut off. My mom never didn't have a bedroom for us to sleep in on the weekends. And now as an adult, thinking about having a house big enough so that you can have 2 extra bedrooms for your children, it's, that's great. But when you realize that the kids only need those rooms are only occupied 2 days a week, 2 nights a week. And then on the 2nd and 5th weekend, they're not occupied at all. Like, how tone deaf can you be to not understand the financial impact? She had to have a mortgage that covered a house that size with her husband. Those were real bills that had to be paid in addition to the child support. And they weren't making tons of money. That $300 could have, easily gone to like retirement savings. And yeah, I get $300 is next to nothing in today's day and age. I don't know how people do divorce now and have to pay like $500 a week in child support. Like, no wonder they can't live in their own place or eat, nutritious, good food. They're eating, the basic high carb crap because that's all they can afford with the $30 left over. So I get that, he wasn't getting rich off of it, but the only reason we ate regularly and consistently was because of the $300 she was sending over through the court order. She told me he didn't pay crap when we were growing up. He would pay just enough to get the courts off his back, but then he wouldn't make the full payment. She didn't get the full child support when we were living with her and she was taking care of us and he was the one getting visitation. And then he'd go buy discount steaks at Albertsons, from the butcher block. And, we'd be eating really well. And he'd be like, oh, you don't get food like this at your mom's. Not on a weekly basis. And because mom also taught us that you shouldn't eat meat that much. And you shouldn't, that's unhealthy. Things that I'm still having to unlearn crap that he taught me. He was such a fat person most of my life. The only reason he's skinny now is because he had a surgery that cut his stomach in half and he's had to learn how to, get proper nutrition. He wasn't big into exercise. He wasn't big into eating healthy or doing things the right way like his father should have taught him. But thankfully, I learned it. It's a struggle. It's so tempting to eat the rolls and the breads and all that stuff. Like, even mom struggled with that. But my appreciation for a good salad is because of her. My love of yogurt is because of her. I eat the Greek yogurt and low sugar and, higher fiber because those are things that she dealt with. She taught me that. And it's stuff that my grandfather, my father's father, would have supported as well. And he knew she was a good person. He always asked, how's your mom doing? He knew she got cheated. He knew that she had the joys of her life ripped from her. The court battle wasn't about, oh, I can provide a better life for my children and I think I should be the primary parent. It was, I want to kick your ass in court. I want a judge to tell you that you're the loser, and I want to steal the joy from your world. That's what my father did. That's what the divorce and the child custody court situation represented. And then when he had to take care of the kids, when he won, there was a lot more involved than he effing ever realized. The only way we furnished our first house was when my grandparents drove from Seattle down to Podunk, Bruno, Idaho, a little desert community in the middle of nowhere surrounded by hay fields. And they brought some used furniture from my father's childhood from the house that they had in Federal Way, West Seattle area. I slept on the same bed, a twin-size bed with the weird 1950s cowboy leather motif stuff that went with it, that my father grew up with. My father never bought me a bed. I was the number one, like, disliked child out of the two of us. He loved my sister. He bought her a new bed. He got himself a new bed, worked out some weird advertising scheme or, Dream Cloud, like, you know, and got the beds comped through the radio work he did. They got 2 new beds. My sister got a double and he got a queen size. I didn't get shit. And then we moved to a bigger house, a nicer house in a nice neighborhood. One that he worked his butt off to earn financing on because he was so bad at paying bills. So that's a massive achievement for him. And I applaud him for that. I get that's why he didn't want to ever part ways with that house, because that was like the peak of his individual living. Like, he finally accomplished something with that purchase. He was never able to do it before, and I don't think he's ever done it since. But that was the one time he did something big on his own, without the help of mom and dad, without someone else having to intervene, like so many other times previously. So, you know, and I see that for what it is too. I saw all those things. I saw how I was promised one thing, and then those promises were reneged on. And, you know, I got screwed. Or so many times of, if you do this, we'll do what you want. And then the day of, like, I delivered my part of it. We're down to, like, the last thing is you completing your end of the deal and doing something for me. Oh, I don't feel well. We can't do your part. But everybody else got what they wanted. I constantly got screwed. My mom's the only person who never did that to me. She was sweet and genuine. She made sure that if she said something was going to be done, it got done. If she made a promise to me, she kept it. She didn't lie to me. She didn't manipulate me. My father did all that to me. And I haven't even started reading through it because it's going to be too heavy, I'm sure. But my mom kept some very detailed notes during all that time. And I'm excited to see in her own writing what happened. She wrote down phone calls. She wrote down things that were promised that didn't happen. She wrote down communications with my father. And it's going to be an interesting read to actually... And it's a thick book. It's written very densely. She even had calendars where she wrote down this date this happened, this date that happened. You know, she shared a lot, but there's a lot more data that she left stored for us to see someday. And I won't, likely go into that, but the only reason I go into this is because my mom didn't have an easy life. My mom wasn't valued by a lot of people. My mom got things she didn't deserve. My mom was abused by many people. And yet, in the face of all of that, she rose to take the high road. She always, found it in herself to forgive them, to let go of the wrongs that had been done to her, to not use that as a way to wish ill will on somebody else or harm herself. Because if you dwell on those things, you're only hurting yourself. You're raising your own blood pressure. You're raising your own cortisol levels. You're stressing your own body. So it's important to let these things go. And she was able to teach me a lot of that. It's still a struggle. I still have, like, I've forgiven people for what was done to me. But I have a hard time forgiving people for what they did to my mom. And I guess in some ways, it still is lightly connected because I loved my mom so much. So in a roundabout way, that's the one thing that was kind of done to me through my mom that I can't forgive. And that's why I'm so passionate about ending toxic conversations and toxic comments about women or disparaging comments, misogyny. Like, women are such a much more valuable thing in this world than our society and in many societies, different continents and whatnot. We all should be stepping up and valuing women's opinions. Look at the last election. Oh, we don't want Kamala Harris because, she's a woman of color, or she's a woman. We didn't want Hillary because she's a woman. Women are too, emotional. They can't be president. But then, Taco flips back and forth about tariffs. Oh, 90 days because they said they love me, so I'm going to hold off. Like, no. That's not the art of the deal. So yeah, I'm going through, a month out from the main event, but I'm going through the realization that my mom's not in this world anymore. She only lived for 64 years. She didn't even get to qualify for collecting her Social Security from all the years she worked. Like, how messed up is that? Where does that money go? Not coming to us. She paid into a system that she doesn't get to benefit from. Let's talk about that. That's so beyond effed. My stepdad, Larry, he got a little bit of it, I think, and she got some of his survivor benefits because she was his wife. That was the only Social Security she saw. But even then, he died when he was 66, I think. So he only got to have it for a year. And then he too paid into it for 60 some years. Where did that money go? What Republican senator is being paid with their cash? At what point is it just a tax that we're all paying? Because, if you live beyond 65, you'll get to collect it back. You don't get the high interest on it. It's just, you literally get back the amount that you'll put in it. But logically, it should be in a high yield savings. If we were able to put that same money into a high yield savings account that you have direct control and access over, you would have so much more money in the bank, other than just the straight numerical value of what you put in there when you were 16. Our system is so broken and out of date. Things that were built, back at the Great Depression were great. They made a lot of sense. They were something back then. But people we've elected haven't done anything to fix it or make it valuable for us, the citizens. And they clearly haven't modernized crap to keep up with times. Look at, minimum wage. It's still so low. It hasn't kept up with inflation. Like, you can't live in any state making minimum wage and pay for a house or a rental. You can't afford housing on minimum wage. That's a problem. But yet you keep reelecting people, Democrat and Republican, back into office, and nothing's happening. So, yeah, these are the things that me and my mom talked about, and I'm going to miss, the spars that we had, and in many ways, she was the inspiration for so many thoughts that I had. She was a huge reason that I create podcast episodes, was because it was a lot of times related to things we talked about. And then I would share my own take on it, or kind of like share parts of what she said as my own thoughts. She kept friends in many circles, and, you know, she played the part in super conservative Trumpy people. You know, she didn't want to make waves, but she was not a Trump supporter. That's pretty much all I'll say. You know, I shared a video that I saved from her backyard camera of the last time we talked. She's watering the grass talking to me, and we're talking about politics. And, you know, to protect her own privacy, I decided, you know, I'm just going to mute this. I'll show people what I see and show that, you know, this is what she was doing, but I will keep her words that she said to me private. Outside of, obviously, the things I shared with you today. Just because that's the person that I'm mourning. That's the loss, you know. 1 month ago, right now, you know, when I got that phone call, your mom's dead. It was such a gut punch. And then I was like, oh, well, now I gotta, you know, we gotta arrange to get to Idaho, We have cats, so we had to find a way to get those taken care of. There was so much to do. Like, so it's not like I could just hop on the plane and fly out the next day. But then I was like, oh, I'll go to work on Thursday, and then maybe we can try to see if we can fly out Friday or Saturday. I literally am like, I was like, oh, I'll just go to work. But then I was like, so emotional. It's like at the drop of a thought, bawling, you know? And I was like, my job is so important that I can't be sitting here trying to do my job and then spontaneously crying, or fighting through blurry-eyed tears, or dealing with, you know, someone who's in a semi-similar situation and just losing it. Like, I told management, I was like, you know, I'm not doing this country any favors if I come to work during this. So I was like, you know, starting now, I can't come into work. And then they're like, how long do you think you need? And I told them, you know, the estate thing's going to take a while, and it's still not over. Like, we're waiting for the judge to sign off on things. We're hoping to maybe be able to sell our house in November, but like the housing market is stagnant. Things are sitting for a while. We want to make as much money as we can off of the house so that we can, you know, have something to divvy up between the three children. But we're waiting, and it's hard. And like, my sister Selena's having to make, and thankfully she's able to. God, if we were any poorer, we'd have to walk away from everything and let it be repossessed and foreclosed on. Like, the poverty in our country is so insane, even among the people that look like they have it made and look like they're doing great. You're literally either a month, a paycheck, or a death away from complete financial destitution. Do you know how much it costs to bury somebody? Do you know how much it costs to begin the probate process? Even when you're all in agreement on what you want to do, it's still thousands of dollars just to file the paperwork. And all that does is authorizes you to act and do everything else yourself. They're not going to do it for you. It's literally just thousands of dollars to get a judge to sign off. And the judge says, yep, you're legal heirs. You can sell their stuff. And now you can finally contact banks and actually start liquidating stuff. But until then, the person that died, their bank account is immediately locked by the big corporate banks that monitor the Social Security status. So once the funeral home says, hey, this person's dead, boom, bank account frozen. payments are no longer, auto pays are bouncing back. Bills are starting to be unpaid that were otherwise would have been taken care of for the month, and now you're having to figure out who has the car loan, how much is the car loan, where's the mortgage coming out of, who has the mortgage, all this stuff. And when someone dies, it's unexpected. It's chaos. It's complete and utter chaos. Thank God passwords were saved in apps on the phone. Thank God passwords were saved on the computer. Because if you're not leaving a way for people to access your world, it's going to be a complete shit show for your family members to straighten out. And you still have to make the car payments. Otherwise, if you wait too long, by the time a judge signs up and says, yeah, you're able to sell the car, if you're far enough out on unpaid car payments, boom, they can legally repossess it. And then if it's financed, you still have to maintain the full insurance coverage, even though no one's going to be driving the car. But because of the loan requirements, you have to maintain that. That's $300 right there each month just to keep the car from being repossessed so that we can sell it or hopefully give it to my sister who needs a reliable vehicle. And eventually, hopefully, if everything goes well, the state has to pay off the remainder of that loan. But in the meantime, somebody has to make those payments. And until you can, like when you call the bank and you're like, hey, this person's dead, I want to make a payment, they get all like super weird and sketch about it. I get it, but also like, why are they making it so hard for you to pay somebody else's note? Like, this world is just so insane. I'm a little bit, honestly, okay. Just, tongue in cheek, very upbeat. I'm a little bit jealous that my mom doesn't have to deal with anything anymore. Like, she doesn't have to worry about not being able to afford her house. She doesn't have to ever worry about, deciding to pay her mortgage or tax bills or get some health care thing taken care of. Like, it still sucks she's not here for us, but I don't have to watch her go through dementia, which, that runs in the family. I don't have to watch like Alzheimer's or any, those cognitive declines. Don't have to watch her get sick with anything, no cancer. Like, there really is some beauty in passing before you have to go through those kind of advanced age situations. And I'm slightly jealous of that. Like, good job, Mom. that right there is probably heaven. But, obviously, like, I want to live beyond what she did. I want to live to be 90. 100 would be cool. I had a great grandfather who lived to be 102. That'd be awesome. I don't know that our world will, readily allow that anymore with all the microplastics and corporate pollution for the sake of tax cuts and, temporary job creation. We're poisoning our planet left and right. So I feel like it's going to be a far stretch for any of us to live to a centenarian achievement on our own through our own actions without intervention of drugs and invasive procedures that undo the toxins that are in our bodies, I'm sure. But, yep. So that's where we are. That's what's going on. I didn't cry once. I'm proud of myself. I didn't get emotional. Personally, like mentally, I'm becoming less blah and less neutral outside of work. I feel like I'm, locking into, we got these things to do to move. I'm back at home with my husband and my kitties, and I have nice things. I'm really proud of the life that I've built for myself. I'm not delinquent on any bills. I mean, right now, the government did shut down at midnight, and I'm impacted by that. So we shall see. But I thankfully made some financial maneuvers, and I have access to credit and some savings. So we should weather this okay. I should be fine. I'm not 20. I'm not in the same situation I would have been had I taken this job when I first applied for it. I'm very proud of the lessons I've learned from other adults who have faced adverse moments in life and overcome them with grace and decorum. So me and my husband are on that path. He's obviously, gainfully employed, doing really well. So we'll still have his money coming in. That would suck if we were a double government employment household. No money, but at least we'll have his money coming in. So we'll have some cash to throw around, and I'm sure it'll be ended soon. It's a Republican majority government right now. So the fact that we have a shutdown is kind of crazy because it's just a statement. They just want, the other side to be like, oh, we overwhelmingly approve of what you're doing. Like, no, just pass a budget or don't. Like, saying that the Democrats are holding this up is complete hogwash. So it is what it is. People will see it, and history will look back on this period. And I'm very thankful that I know who my mom voted for and supported, and I'm thankful that I know who I voted for and supported, and we're on the right side of history. So, back to the Civil War, you had to pick the Union or the Confederate, and the majority of my family was on the Union side. So there were some people that fought on the Confederate side, and frankly, I think we should have done more to try all of them for treason. I think that was a failed turning point in our country. But anyway, I don't know when the next podcast episode will come out. Obviously, I wanted to do part 2 of the airport security thing, and now it's still good, but I might save that for next year just because I wanted to release it on 9/11, but I don't know. My drive to create content right now is so on the back burner, and we got the move coming in November and then the holidays and stuff. So this might be my last podcast episode for the year. So until we meet again, thank you for being a listener. Thank you for being, among my mom, listening to my voice drone on sometimes. If you see the link to the GoFundMe in the bottom of this episode and another episode, if it's still up, thank you for your donations and time. You can also, if that's not available, if you want to send some money, a financial gesture to help get through things, I welcome it, but I'm also not asking for it. We'll figure it out. Anyway, love you all. Thank you again for all the years of support, and 2026 will be a new era of this podcast without, one of the main lights that has inspired it and the content. So we'll see what 2026 holds on many fronts, and hopefully I'll have new stuff to share and more stuff to share. My husband and I are looking forward to being more involved in the community of the Philadelphia area in the coming year through where we're moving to. We're going to be more active, kick up our health initiatives, start working out more, biking, being more active. We've been a little bit too sedentary in our current path, which is fine. You do need to take time to relax, but this is just part of that fire of, this is my goal beyond 64. I want to live the years that my mom didn't get to. So I'm sorry that she missed out on 13 years of our childhood, not getting to be the everyday parent, or, super directly involved in school. I feel like I would have done better in school had I lived with her. I would have got better grades. I feel like I would have been supported. I would have learned how to more appropriately ask for help instead of, I asked for help living with my father, and I literally was told to find the answer to a math problem in a dictionary. Let that sink for a second. What kind of a shitty parent response is that? That's a bad parent right there. And if he hears this, that's why I don't talk to you. Because you did the best you could in a situation that you, A, didn't need to be in, and B, brought upon yourself. So on one hand, part of me is like, you want the world to feel empathetic to you and be like, well, he did the best he could. He was just trying his best. Yeah, but he also didn't need to, take us from our mom when we were legally living with her, kidnap us, essentially, and then start a custody battle and take us away from her legally. He brought that on himself. You don't steal a tiger from a zoo and then go, oh shit, I don't have a place to keep this. I don't have the resources to feed it. What am I going to do? And that's what happened. Children are not possessions. Children are not houseplants. You have to invest your time and actually give of yourself. You can't just, cut a check to the school and call it good. This is the same person that was like, oh, my time is valuable. Can I just write a check? And then wondered why later on when, he wanted to actually be involved and show up at the school stuff and like be a chaperone, why I was like, I don't want you there. I don't want you to do that. And I was like, oh, why don't you want me around? Because you set that precedence. You didn't want to be around. Frankly, I didn't want you to be around after that. Because yeah, your time is valuable. And I clearly see I'm not worth your time. You'd rather just pay for me. You'd rather just pay a lawyer to get me than to actually spend time doing early childhood development. Thank God my grandparents took us in that year that we, in between living with mom full time and then him full time, they took us for the summer and did like intensive language development and spelling and stuff. And my mom, paid to have us in daycare where we did educational stuff. My father never did any of that. Not a damn thing. He never took us to daycare. He never took us to educational stuff. He never took us to swim lessons. My mom and my grandparents did that. Maybe he eventually gave him some money. I don't know. But they invested their time. They invested humanity into creating better humans in my sister and myself. Children aren't houseplants. You can't just water them every 2 weeks and then go smoke a joint in the garage. I hate the smell of weed. Hate it. With a passion. It's the most disgusting smell in the world because it reminds me of my father. The ultimate pothead that I've ever experienced. Anyway. All right. Well, I will see you. Maybe if I get inspired to share something incredible by the end of the year. I'll see you this year. If not, I will see you in 2026. Thank you again for a great year of listening and inspirational content. If you'd ever like to reach out, please do so. Email, text, phone call, what have you. The resources are here. No one's ever used them, but they're there if you'd like. So I appreciate you guys. Everyone's like, oh, we need more content. And it is fun to make content for you guys. And people, for some odd reason, enjoy listening to my voice. So I'm happy that you are one of the ears. All right. Well, you take care, and I'll see you at the next one.
Thank you for listening to Everything with Everett. Connect with Everett and other listeners on Facebook and Twitter at Everett Podcast. Everett would love to hear from you. Share your thoughts by emailing mystory@everettpodcast.com. You can also leave a voicemail or send a text message to 208-391-2808. Choose to listen, speak with kindness, and have a great day.